Search is undergoing a lot of big changes lately. Google is still the big leader with more than 67% market share in the US. But things are moving from the desktop to mobile and wearable devices, and the game is getting more wide open. Now, Google just announced that Google Now, its voice search, would be available on Apple's iOS. I'm Dan Farber, and I'm joined by Seth Rosenblatt, who covers this subject matter for CNET. So what is the significance of Google Now coming to iOS?
Sure. Well, Google Now is a predictive search and a voice recognition app. It's natively built into Android 4.1 and above, and it allows Google to not only do voice recognition very easily, very simply, where you talk to the phone, you can send text messages and stuff like that, and it's very accurate with its recognition. It's also predictive search. So if you have in your calendar, for example, a plane trip from San Francisco to New York, it will tell you, what the traffic is like on the way to the airport before you even ask for it. In New York, it will have hotels listed if you don't have one built into your calendar. If you're into sports, it will recognize that you are in San Francisco and it will pull in Giants scores or the 49ers scores.
So basically, where do you think Google Now, Siri, there's another one, Sherpa, that came out of Latin America. Where are these all heading? Because you don't see a lot of people talking to their desktops. You don't see a lot of people necessarily talking to their phones at this point.
Sure. Well, I think one of the very interesting developments that's going on is with Google Glass. The ability for Google and these other services to recognize what you say as you're speaking with very little lag time means that devices where you're no longer holding it in your hand, where it's something that's just worn on your clothing or worn on your face, I think is a real game changer. If you don't have to pull out your phone out of your pocket, that means you're basically living with the computer instead of interfacing with the computer in a more cold way.
Now we kind of talk about all the predictive solutions and answers it can give you, but what are the limitations at this point?
Well, at this point, Google would say that the limitations, I think, are fairly significant. Although they have told us that there is that in the past year alone, the first year of Google Now, they've made 15 to 35% increase in improvement in voice recognition. So they clearly see the glass as not even being anywhere near half full. And they are clearly going full speed ahead with this. It's also very notable that Larry Page last week in their earnings call brought up the fact that Google Now is a big thing for them. He didn't talk about much else. He talked about Google Glass, he talked about some of the other projects that they're working on, Google Fiber, but the fact that he called out Google Now, not Chrome and none of any other services that they're working on, indicates that the voice recognition and the predictive search of Google Now is extremely important to the company.
And this is all kind of tied into what Google has called a knowledge graph, which is trying to identify all these entities, so to speak, so that it understands when you say king, to try to figure out the context about what kind of king do you mean.
Right. Whether you're talking about the kings of the sports team, or whether you're talking about the king of Thailand or whomever, King Street. There's a lot of different ways that can be interpreted. Another big problem that they're wrestling with is accents. The ability for the knowledge graph to recognize what you're saying and what that means when you're speaking with a different inflection than what could be described as standard American English.
So the glass is half full.
I think Google would say the glass isn't even anywhere near half full.
And what about Siri, just to finish up?
Sure. Well, what Apple's doing with Siri is slightly different. So far, it's pretty much limited just to voice recognition. But it does have different integration with the phone, where you can jostle the phone and get Siri to activate. You can also just say, hey Siri, and Siri will activate. So that kind of technology Google hasn't yet put directly into its Android systems, but honestly, if they announce that in a few weeks at Google I/O, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, great. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you, Dan.
For CNET, I'm Dan Farber. Thanks for watching.